So that's a great question. It takes me back, let's say, almost 8 years before I ran for school board. In 1995, I was asked by then County Supervisor Wilma Chan to work on something called the Oakland Child Health and Safety Initiative. This was an initiative, competitive a competition sponsored by Robert Wood Johnson. It was a $100 million grant to fund to fund 5 cities across the country over a period of 8 years to move the needle on public health issues around education and around cities. So Oakland, I think if you ask anybody of that era, we were about to be cut off. We made it in the semifinal round, but our performance was so poor we were going to be just X'd off. Supervisor Chan asked me to come and see if I could help bring an education focus to this work. So guess who the partners were to this public health initiative? It was the county, Alameda County. There was something called the ICPC, the Interagency Children's Policy Council, the City of Oakland's Life Enrichment Agency, and the Oakland Public Schools. Those were the 3 partners along with the East Bay Community Foundation. We worked for a 3-month period, and you know what model I used because I'm very much of a place-based person, in case you haven't seen. I'm born and raised here. My kids all went to school here. So I looked around the city for 3 models that could be best practices at the time for this kind of public health intervention model for life circumstances of children. The 3 that we chose were the Community Health, the Computer Health Academy in the San Antonio, the Urban Strategies Council in West Oakland, and the East Bay Asian Youth Center. And that was my connection with now board member David Kakashiba. He was running something at the time around community organizing and development around the Roosevelt neighborhood. So believe it or not, I don't know if any of you have visited Roosevelt School, but in 93 to 95, Roosevelt School was the shining star in educational reform. Under BASREC and the Annenberg grants and I think it was the McConnell-Clark Foundation grants, there was a lot of interest in developing, guess what, teacher decision-making, clusters of teachers around topics, and wraparound services. So that's how that's how I found it. We began to look at education as a public health intervention, not as an academic intervention. And we got the grant, and let's see, it's $1.25 million a year for 8 years, so $10 million, and 8 years later, we now have something called Safe Passages Youth Ventures, and that's the legacy, the outgrowth of that particular grant. So can it be done? Yes. But is it very difficult work? Yes. What are the results? The results are basically the relationships among the adults, the opportunities to build, to experiment, to learn, to understand, to better utilize our services, but to realize that politicians go on a certain time cycle that has something to do with November and June elections. And so it's very difficult for the political realm to focus on something like the kind of collaborations that we have that's proposed as thriving cities, thriving students. But as you can imagine, I am so enthusiastic about thriving students and the full service community school idea, schools as a center of community. If you look back at the Safe Passages initiative that I wrote 15 years ago to get the grant, you'll see a lot of the organizational echoes from that time. They still exist all around the city. They just weren't necessarily institutionalized in a formal way that you could track, but I track it all the time, and I'm very proud of that particular kind of work. Do we have the people in place now to be able to do it? Yes, we have the superintendent who's willing and able to do it. We don't know who the mayor is. We don't know who, in fact, I wonder if any of you know who your county supervisors are. The key to this kind of work is getting the county to be engaged. They are the ones that handle, take care of, and responsible for the social services. So if you don't know who your county supervisor is, you only have 1/3 of the answer to that question.